Many teachers think they are making one decision when they start planning a course. They ask themselves, what course should I create? But in reality, they are making at least three different decisions. First, what is the course about? Second, how will students experience it? And third, how big should the first version be? Those are not the same question. A tutor can choose a strong topic and still pick the wrong format. A teacher can choose a good format and still make the course too large. Another teacher can choose a realistic scope, but build the whole thing around a weak or vague topic. And that matters because first courses usually fail for one of those reasons, not because the teacher lacks subject knowledge. Strong course design usually starts with goals and learner context before it moves into activities, materials, and technology. In other words, content is not the starting point. The learner, the outcome, the constraints, and the structure come first. So, in this lesson, we separate the problem properly. We look at how to choose the right first topic, how to choose the right format, and how to choose the right size. That separation alone can save you from a lot of very expensive enthusiasm. Let's start with the topic, but not with the subject. This is one of the first mistakes teachers make. They choose a course topic the same way they would describe their school subject. They say things like math, biology, English, SAT prep, or history, but those are subjects, they are not yet course topics. A course topic only becomes strong when it is tied to a specific learner problem and a clear result. That distinction matters because subject knowledge is usually broad, while student demand is usually narrow. A teacher may know how to teach all of middle school algebra, but the first good online course is usually not middle school algebra. It is something more specific, like fractions without panic, equations and word problems for grade 7, or how to stop making the same mistakes in algebra tests. A language tutor may know how to teach English broadly, but the first course might be something like write better essay introductions in English, move from B1 to B2 speaking by fixing the 20 most common mistakes, or a short guided prep course for IELTS writing task 2. A science teacher may know an entire exam curriculum, but a strong first course could be cell biology core concepts for exam success, how to answer free response questions in AP biology, or stoichiometry without guesswork. The first course should not try to represent everything you know. It should solve one urgent, recognizable problem. So, how do you choose a strong first topic? A strong first topic usually passes five tests. First, it solves a problem students already feel. The best first course topics usually come from repeated student pain, not from the teacher's abstract love of a subject. That means you should pay attention to repeated questions from students, the topic learners always get stuck on, the concept parents keep asking about, the assignment students avoid, the exam section with the worst scores, or the skills that keep slowing learners down. When students keep saying things like, I never understand fractions, I panic in speaking exams, or I cannot write the introduction, that is not just complaining, that is course material waving at you. Second, the topic should lead to a clear result. If you cannot explain what changes for the learner, you probably do not yet have a strong course topic. A weak first topic sounds like improve your writing, get better at science, or learn math the easy way. A stronger topic sounds like write clear argumentative essay introductions, master the fraction operations that break most students, or prepare for the next 4 weeks of your chemistry unit test. The real question is not can I teach this? The real question is can I describe what changes for the learner? If the answer is fuzzy, the topic is probably too broad. Third, the topic should be specific enough to finish. For a first course, specificity is not a weakness, it is a survival strategy. A broad topic invites you to include everything. A narrow topic forces prioritization, so instead of trying to create everything a student needs for SAT Math, a much smarter first step might be linear equations and word problems for SAT Math, how to stop losing easy points on SAT Math, or the 10 SAT Math patterns students miss most often. The narrow topic is easier to finish, easier to explain, easier to validate, easier to price, and easier for a student to understand. Fourth, the topic should fit your real expertise and your real teaching materials. A first course should use terrain you already know well. That does not mean copying old material into a platform and calling it innovation. It means choosing a problem where you already know where students struggle, what examples work, what misconceptions appear, what sequence helps most, what kind of practice is necessary, and where feedback really matters. This is why repeated tutoring or classroom teaching often gives you the best raw material for a first course. You have pattern recognition, you have explained the same thing 50 times, and that repetition, annoying as it may feel in the moment, is actually gold. And fifth, the topic should be something you can validate with real evidence. A course topic becomes much stronger when you can test it before building everything. In practice, that can mean asking current students or parents what they most want help with, publishing short educational content and seeing what gets the strongest response, running a poll with several narrow topic options, or launching a one lesson paid trial, workshop, or mini course first. Notice what all of those methods have in common. They rely on evidence, not imagination, which is frankly rude to imagination, but correct. So if you are stuck between several topic ideas, run each one through a simple filter. Ask yourself, is this a problem students already feel? Can I explain the result clearly in one sentence? Is it narrow enough for a first version? Do I already have strong teaching examples and explanations for it? And can I test interest before building the full course? The topic that survives those questions most cleanly is probably the best candidate. Not the most glamorous one, not the biggest one, the best one. Now let's move to the second decision, format. Once you have a good topic, the next question is how students should experience the course. This is where many teachers get sloppy. They treat format as a delivery detail, like deciding whether to use video or text. But format is much bigger than that. Format shapes the learner experience, the pacing, the amount of accountability, the amount of teacher support, the operational workload, the pricing logic, the completion rate, and the overall kind of business you are building. So let's look at the main options. The first format is self-paced. In a self-paced course, learners move through the material on their own timeline. This format is often best when the learner values flexibility. The topic can be learned in clear independent steps. You do not want to depend on live scheduling. You want a course that can be sold continuously, and the support model is light or clearly bounded. It is often a strong fit for focus skill modules, exam drills, technique-based lessons, short targeted improvement courses, and foundational review material. But self-paced also has weaknesses. Because learners move along, the course itself has to do more work through structure, clarity, prompts, and built-in support. Flexibility is valuable, but it also makes quitting easier. So self-paced works best when the topic is focused and the learner can make real progress independently. The second format is cohort-based. A cohort-based course means students start and move through the course together on the same schedule. This format is often strongest when accountability matters a lot. The topic benefits from discussion or shared energy. Feedback is part of the value. You want stronger momentum, and students are likely to procrastinate without deadlines. It is often a good fit for writing and speaking improvement, project-based courses, exam intensives with timed milestones, teacher training with reflection and peer exchange, and small group programs where discussion adds value. Cohort-based learning feels more familiar to many classroom teachers because it resembles traditional teaching, but it also has costs. It is less flexible, requires more scheduling discipline, and often demands more live involvement from you. So it is a strong format when the topic truly needs accountability and shared timing, but a bad one if you do not actually want to keep showing up live. The third option is a live workshop or a short live course. This is often the smartest bridge between tutoring and a larger online course. It works well when you want fast validation. The topic is narrow, students need direct teacher guidance, you want to test explanations before recording polished content, or you are not yet ready to build a full self-paced product. For example, before building a complete exam prep course, a tutor might run a 90-minute live workshop, a 3-session micro bootcamp, or a 1-week practice sprint. That still counts as course creation. It is just smarter course creation. And the fourth option is hybrid. A hybrid course combines self-paced materials with live elements such as question and answer sessions, feedback calls, or weekly check-ins. This often works well when students need both flexibility and support. The topic benefits from guided application. You want reusable content but still want to add premium interaction. You want a path from lower touch offers to higher touch support. For many teachers and tutors, hybrid is actually the most natural first series format. It lets you preserve the strengths of teaching like explanation, guidance, and responsiveness, while still creating reusable assets. For example, lessons and practice can live inside sub-school, live review sessions can happen once a week, homework can be submitted on a schedule, and common feedback can be delivered in group form. But hybrid has a trap. If you promise self-paced content, weekly live teaching, personal feedback, message support, and custom adjustments for every student, you may accidentally build yourself a beautiful new prison. So hybrid is powerful, but only when the support model is clearly defined. So how do you choose the right format? A good way to decide is to ask 4 questions. First, what does a learner need in order to succeed? Some learners can move independently with clear materials and practice. Others need deadlines, encouragement, correction, or social accountability. If the course topic depends heavily on feedback, peer learning, live correction, or emotional momentum, cohort or hybrid may be stronger than purely self-paced. Second, how much teacher involvement is actually realistic for you? This is where many teachers lie to themselves. They choose a format based on what sounds impressive, not what they can sustain. If you are already overloaded, promising a high-touch cohort with lots of live support may be a terrible idea. The right format is not the one that sounds premium. It is the one you can run without becoming resentful halfway through. Third, what kind of problem are you solving? Some learning problems respond well to structured content and guided practice. Others need more interaction. A grammar correction mini course may work beautifully as self-paced. A speaking course often benefits from live or cohort elements. A writing course may need at least some feedback or structured checkpoints. A study skills course might work extremely well in a short self-paced format. And fourth, what are you actually trying to test first? Your first course does not have to prove everything at once. Sometimes you are mainly testing whether students care about the topic. Sometimes you are testing whether your explanation works. Sometimes you want to know whether learners complete the material, whether the pricing makes sense, or whether they want more support. So choose the format that helps you learn what you most need to learn next. Now we get to the third decision, and this is the one that saves you from madness: scope. How big should the first course be? A teacher's first instinct is very often to build too much. Why? Because teachers care, because they know the topic is bigger than a short course, because they do not want students to feel shortchanged, because broadness feels safe, and because cutting content feels cruel. Unfortunately, overbuilding is one of the fastest ways to delay launch, reduce clarity, overwhelm learners, and increase your own workload. So here is the lesson in one sentence. Do not design the course you could teach. Design the course your learner can finish and you can run well. That is the safest first course principle. A smaller promise with stronger execution is usually better than a huge promise with chaotic delivery. Your first course should usually be narrower than your expertise. That is not a compromise. That is good design. A strong first course often has one main learner type, one clear problem, one primary promised result, a limited number of modules, a manageable number of lessons, practice that directly supports the result, no unnecessary side branches, and no giant bonus library that quietly doubles your workload while you pretend it is generosity. Not every first course has to be tiny, but it does need to be appropriately scoped. A simple way to think about scope is to use three levels. Level 1 is a micro course or mini course. This is best when you want to validate demand quickly, solve one narrow problem, or build your first course without drowning. It works well for one exam skill, one recurring mistake, one unit or concept cluster, or one short method or framework. Level 2 is a focused starter course. This is best when you already know the problem is real and you want to offer a fuller solution but not a giant flagship product. It works well for one coherent result over several weeks, one segment of a subject area, or one transformation with a limited number of steps. Level 3 is a full flagship course. This is best only when you already understand the topic, the audience, the support model, and the demand well enough to justify a larger build. And for most teachers, this is not the smartest first move, not because they are not capable, but because the first goal is not to build the largest possible course. The first goal is to build the right first version. So, how can you tell your first course is too big? There are warning signs. You cannot describe the result in one sentence. You keep adding one more module because it might help. The course covers very different learners with very different needs. The assessments would require heavy custom feedback on everything. You are trying to teach a whole semester's worth of material at once. The structure feels more like a curriculum archive than a learning journey. Or, deep down, you hope size will compensate for unclear positioning. If that is happening, the course probably needs to be cut down. Now, here is a part many teachers struggle with. They worry a narrower course will feel too small or not valuable enough. That fear makes sense, but it usually comes from measuring value in content volume instead of learner progress. A smaller course that creates a real change is more valuable than a giant course that mostly gives students the feeling of being vaguely professionally educated. Students rarely think, I wish this course had 3 more hours of miscellaneous material. What they actually care about is whether the course solved the problem, whether they could follow it, whether they could finish it, and whether they improved. So enough means enough to produce the promised result, not enough to prove that you know a lot. A practical way to make this whole decision is simple. Choose a topic that solves a repeated learner problem, leads to a clear result, is narrow enough to finish, matches your real teaching experience, and can be validated with evidence. Choose a format that fits the learner's need for flexibility or accountability, matches how much support the topic requires, matches how much live involvement you can realistically provide, and helps you test the next thing you need to learn. And choose a scope that focuses on one main promise, avoids unnecessary breadth, is realistic for version 1, and supports finishing, launching, and improving. If one of those three choices feels weak, fix it now. It is much cheaper to fix a bad course decision on paper than after recording 12 lessons and developing a personal grudge against your own microphone. Let's make this concrete. A math tutor who teaches many topics might start with solving linear equations and word problems, delivered as a self-paced course with an optional weekly live question and answer session with 4 modules, 12 short lessons, and practice after each module. That works because the problem is common, the outcome is clear, the content is focused, and the support is limited enough to stay manageable. An English tutor might start with essay introductions for B2 and exam writing students, delivered as a short cohort-based course over 2 weeks with 6 lessons and 2 live feedback sessions. That works because writing benefits from deadlines and feedback, the promise is specific and the scale is realistic. A science teacher might start with cell biology core concepts before the next school exam, delivered as a self-paced mini course with practice quizzes and one optional revision call. That works because the exam urgency is clear, the scope is contained, and the teacher can expand into other units later if the first one works. Notice the pattern. None of these are giant products promising complete subject mastery. They are focused, teachable, and launchable. And now, a few things not to do. Do not choose your first topic only because it is the broadest thing you know, the most intellectually interesting thing to you, the most important thing in theory, the thing that would take 6 months to build, or the thing that feels big enough to impress people. Do not choose a cohort format just because it sounds premium if you do not want to keep running live sessions. Do not choose self-paced just because it sounds scalable if the topic really depends on feedback and accountability. Do not try to help everyone, and do not build your first course like a monument to your guilt about leaving something out. You are not designing an encyclopedia. You are designing a learning experience. So here is the blunt recommendation. For most teachers and tutors, the smartest first course is usually a narrow problem-based course with a clear result, delivered either in a focused self-paced format if learners can progress independently, or in a light hybrid or short cohort format if feedback and accountability matter. What is usually not smart as a first move is a huge all levels course, a full curriculum for an entire subject, a course with too many learner types mixed together, a high touch format you cannot sustain, or a giant flagship build before you have evidence. You can grow into bigger structures later. Your first course is not supposed to be your empire. It is supposed to be your strongest first proof.